In addition to learning about equations, you'll be asked to solve word problems. So let's start by asking, what is a word problem? We can think of it as a puzzle where we have a real world situation and we need to use math to figure something out. So we'll be given some information about something that happens out in the world, and we'll be using the math that we learn in Algebra 1 to answer some question about that real world situation. So what's the point? Why don't we just stick to learning about numbers and variables and equations? Why do we have to incorporate the real world? That is a very important question. An important part of critical thinking is asking, why are we doing this? And the reason we're doing this is to learn the method and tools of solving problems. So take a second to think about your life. Each day, you have some sort of task or challenge or problem, something that you need to solve. You need to figure out how to get to the bus on time, how to make sure you're prepared for a test, and of course, how to balance all of the different activities and classes that you have in school. These are all problems, these are all challenges that you have to navigate through. And the reason we're introducing word problems in Algebra 1 is that math is really about becoming more rational, more logical. As you'll see, every problem, there's a step by step process to get to an answer. So, what we're trying to do here is take this skill of being logical and working step by step and apply that to our own lives. So, what is this method for solving problems? And what are the tools we can use? There's a very famous book called How to Solve It. It was written by one of the fancy math folks, a guy named George Palia. I recommend every student and every teacher to read this book at some point. It's probably one of the most useful books you'll ever read. But in this book, George Palia gives a 4-step method for solving problems. When you have a problem in front of you, the first step is to understand the problem. You don't want to jump into solving the problem until you understand it, because that can end up wasting time and getting you to the wrong answer. You want to ask yourself, do you know all the words? If there's a word you haven't seen before, you need to figure out what that is before you dig into the problem. Another important question is, what are you looking for? Some of these word problems might show up as a paragraph of information, and you need to figure out what exactly do they want? What are you being asked to find? Then you want to ask, what information are you given? What are you being told about the real world situation? And finally, what requirements are given? These 4 questions here are very important to answer separately. Do you know all the words? What are you looking for? What information are you given? Oftentimes, there's going to be a specific requirement. For example, when we were talking about getting to the bus on time, the exact time that you have to get to the bus, that's a requirement. You don't need to just get to the bus, you need to get there at a specific time. So these 4 questions here are very important to answer one at a time, and answering them helps you understand the problem. It'll make it a lot quicker to get to the right answer. If you don't have a good understanding of the problem and you go straight into trying to solve it, you're likely going to struggle or end up with the wrong answer. And when we consider real life, a lot of people skip this step. When they have some problem ahead of them, they don't take the time to fully understand the problem. They try to go straight into solving it or doing some action. You need to have the patience to understand what you're doing and what is being asked of you. One example is the Marvel superhero movies. For a long time, they were very popular, but at some point, their popularity went down quite a bit. And why is that? Because the people making the movie, Marvel, they did not understand the problem or the task that they had. Their task was to create great superhero movies for their fans. So, using these questions, we can say that Marvel was looking to make great movies. And the information we have is that there are a lot of people who love Marvel movies and want more. However, Marvel wasn't able to answer this last question. What requirements are given? The fans gave Marvel a requirement. They said, "We'll continue to watch your movies if you keep the great quality." That's the whole reason that there are so many fans of Marvel, it's because of the quality. So in this last question, the fans say, "Continue the quality," and they don't care about the quantity. They don't care as much about how many movies there are. Unfortunately, Marvel did not answer this last question, and so they did not fully understand the problem. So, what they did is they used these first 2 steps. They're looking to make great movies, and fans want more. And so they pumped out so many different movies and TV shows, and their quality went down. And the fans said, "That was our requirement. We'll keep watching your movies if you continue the quality." Since that requirement wasn't met, Marvel's popularity went down. So you can find plenty of examples like this of folks in the real world not taking the time to understand the problem. And it might be because they never learned a method like this. They never learned a step by step approach to solving problems. There's a tendency to go straight into solving a problem. But if you want the best results, you need to have the patience to go through this method and think critically about each step that you're doing. So, this is the first step for solving a problem. And what do you do once you understand the problem? You move on to step 2, which is make a plan. So, how do you make a plan? Well, you use those tools that we mentioned before. There's a method to solving problems and tools to help you out. So, what are some of these tools in your toolbox? One tool is asking, "Have you seen this type of problem before?" If you've seen a similar type of problem in the past, you can use what you learned there to help you here. Another tool is asking, "Is all of the info in the problem useful Or is some of it unnecessary? When you have a real world situation, you'll have a lot of information, and you need to figure out what information is useful to solve my problem. Another tool in your toolbox, you can ask yourself, do you know any useful equations or formulas? In Algebra 1, you'll be working with equations quite a bit, and oftentimes there's going to be a useful equation that can help you in the word problem. Another tool is, do you know a related problem or concept that can help you here? So you might have to think a little bit for this question. Let's say that for our first question, you haven't seen this type of problem before. And let's say you don't know any useful equations or formulas. Then you don't really have much to work with. So this final question here is, does the question remind you of anything? Any concept you've seen before in class? Anything you've worked on? So this question is basically asking, is there anything that I know that can help me here? And you might not need to ask that question. If you have seen the problem before and you know a useful equation, that might be enough to make a plan for solving the problem. Again, these are all tools here. You don't have to use all the tools in your toolbox, just whatever you need. And let me give you one more tool. Can you draw a table or a graph or some sort of picture? As you'll see throughout this course, drawing a picture of some kind, just trying to visualize the problem, can make it a lot easier to get to your answer. Alright, so these are several tools that you can use for making a plan. So let's say you understand the problem, you've made a plan using these tools. What do you do next? Step 3 in our method is to carry out the plan. This might seem obvious, but it's important to remember, check each step. You want to make sure that each thing that you write down, each step, makes sense before you move on to the next one. And part of that is just working at a good speed. As you might know, if you try to solve a problem super fast, you might end up making little mistakes. So you've already done the hard work of understanding the problem and making a plan. Take the time to properly carry out your plan. And once you've carried out your plan, step 4 of our method, the final step, is check your solution. You want to ask, is your answer reasonable? For example, if your word problem is about checking out books at the library, and your answer in the end says that you'll check out 600 books, that is not reasonable. Most people don't check out 600 books. So if you get an unreasonable answer, that means go back to step 3 and check each step. Maybe you overlooked something and made a little error that led to checking out 600 books. So this is the method for solving problems. There are 4 major steps and a variety of tools to help you along the way. I encourage you to write out this method on a piece of paper and keep it next to you while you're working through these word problems. Use it to guide you step by step through the problem and to the answer. If you're stuck at any point in the word problem, you can look back at these questions and see if there's something that can help you. Maybe you missed one of the requirements. Maybe it could help to draw a picture. If you keep this method next to you as you're working through word problems, eventually, this kind of thinking, these questions are just going to become natural. And that's the goal. That's why we're doing these word problems. So you can become better at solving problems, whether they're in class or out in your life.